Now it's time for our new segment, Keep Them or Cut Them. We're going to name off some players. Sam's going to name off some players for me, and I'm going to make the decision. If I'm the GM, if I'm Quasey, put my Quasey hat on, am I going to keep this guy on my roster or am I going to cut him? And let me be frank before we get into this, and let's bring Sam in for this one. Let me be frank. Cutting him does not mean I don't think they're a good athlete or a good fit for this team. It just means that there are so many other pieces to this 53-man puzzle that they are not going to make the team. So don't take it as if this guy is just bad. Now, if they are bad, I'm not afraid to say it, but keep them or cut them. Take it away, Sam.
All right, good disclaimer. I've got 4 names for you. We'll see if we get to them all. I'm going to start you off with a forgotten about player who in 2019 was a really important piece of that offense. Bisi Johnson got replaced by Justin Jefferson in 2020, injured in 2021, 1 year left on his deal, Ron. Keep him or cut him.
Yeah, Bisi Johnson for me, I do like this kid. Here's the caveat about this. So Bisi Johnson having the same last name as me, he and I crossed paths a lot during COVID because the way the COVID schedule was set up, you went alphabetically. So it was always BC in front of me and then me. And so after like the third time, we kind of figured that out. Like, hey, man, what's going on? Blah, blah, And so as we're, because hey, here's your time, you have to show up to get your COVID test because we don't want too many people in the trailer. So as BC and I would weekly kind of run into each other on Mondays, this was always the big talker. It's like, dude, what happened in the game with this? The one I'll never forget was the Colts game. And for those that remember the Colts game, that was the bad game Kirk Cousins had with interceptions. Now, two of them, I think weren't, or no, one of them wasn't his fault. One was just trying to make something happen at the end of the half, if I'm not mistaken. But the BC Johnson one, he was running a slant versus cover 2. The problem with what he did was he throttled down and he slowed down, assuming the safety was there and the corner had set back. Well, they looked like they were in the 2 shell and they shifted. Long story short, Kirk Cousins throws as if BC's going to keep coming across his face. BC kind of throttles down, seeing man or zone or seeing zone. I would have to go back and actually see what it was too, because you don't go with the corner, you go with the safety. So if it's too high, it's zone for the receiver. If it's 1 high, it's man, and you keep going. Because if it's 2, then the linebacker's there, you're going to get your head knocked off. I do remember there was a guy and there was a window, so I can understand BC's hesitation. There was another one like on 3rd and something against, I think, Jacksonville, maybe or somebody else, where he slowed down. And this was, I think, Thielen had got hurt. Slows down, kind of pity pat, same thing, hits off his arm instead of running through, letting it catch in his body. Those 2 plays for me stood out because literally after that, he was taken out the game. And after the Colts game, for instance, like you said, we never saw BC again. Those mistakes happen. Justin Jefferson just happened to come in and do well. But for BC Johnson, if you look at KJ Osborne, you look at Adam Thielen, you look at Justin Jefferson, those 3 are locks. Amir Smith-Marset played last year, but I think BC is probably a better overall receiver. I think Smith-Marset gives you a lot on special teams, but BC can learn it. I'm going to keep BC on this roster, though. I think he can be that 5th, 6th receiver. With this passing game, they're going to go deep. Think about how many receivers the Rams bought in the game during the Super Bowl and the playoffs. I think they're going to go heavy receiver this year, smaller on like maybe the running back tight end side.
Yeah, so in my mind, they're keeping 6. Probably not 7. That's too many.
No,
5 is too little. And it is a numbers game. Thielen, Jefferson, Osborne, locks. I think that Amir Smith-Marset, because he's only a 2nd-year receiver, I think you got to play it out for at least 1 more year. I think he has to make the team in my mind. Then you've got the sneaky rookie, Jalen Naylor. Like, what do you do with him? I think a lot of times you like to keep these rookie guys, but it's not a guarantee. So he's going to be competing with BC. Dan Chisena, where does he fit in all this? I have been on board with not keeping Chisena because he doesn't offer you much as a receiver. So I'm okay if they cut ties there. So I think he's vying for that 5th and 6th spot with Naylor and with Smith-Marset and Blake Prohl too. Remember, he got hurt during camp last year, but he was having a good camp. So I think he's in the mix, firmly in the mix to be kind of one of those depth guys. And he's obviously got to offer you something on special teams too.
Yeah, Dan Chisena's speed. Yeah. I think that's the key to keep an eye on. But no, I think you keep BC.
I've got another one for you on defense. A cornerback who we've heard a little bit from here and there due to injuries, but Harrison Hand. I got to check. Is this year 3 or 4 for Hand? I think it's 3. I think it's his 3rd year on the team. You drafted a couple corners this year. Is there room for Harrison Hand on this roster?
Well, for Harrison Hand, experience out of Temple, they give him 3 years. This is then coming up on his 4th year,
It is
and
4.
this
Okay.
is where he stands. So when you look at Harrison Hand, um, I think he was suitable for the moment, meaning, like you said, guys were getting hurt, he was coming out. Now, this is gonna be the problem. In the past, it was a cornerback heavy team, but in the 3-4 defense, it changes a little bit because you need more tweener backers because you're now going 4 backers versus 3. And so you're going to have to decide between backers, DNs, D tackles, corners, safeties. Which one do you need more of? What can you get away with? I think Brian Asamoah adds a ton of, like, the coaches all like love his speed, his play already. I think that adds a nickel guy at 225 pounds. He's about the size of a safety. He can come in and play nickel safety because Cam Bynum can play cornerback. And so I think that's going to be tough for Harrison Hand because now when you look at the way this defense plays out, it's not going to be a true cover 2 shell 4-3 defense. You're going to have some odd looks. You're going to have some move guys. When you're looking at corners, I know Chris Boyd has struggled. So I think Chris Boyd, Harrison Hand, those two, that's going to be the deciding factor. Again, this is an all new group. So don't think the guys that have been here are locks. I think Andrew Booth Jr., we know he's good. Cam Dantzler is good. Caleb Evans is good. That's 3. Then you go down to Patrick Peterson. I think he's good. That's 4. You go Chandon Sullivan. That's 5. You're at 5 cornerbacks already. Now you go to safety. Cam Bynum's good. That's 6. Lewisine, Harrison Smith. That's now 8. So we're at 8 DBs, and we only have 3 safeties. So now I need a 9th safety, as that's my thought. Now, I could be wrong. They might go heavy corner and say Brian Asamoah can be a weird nickel type of guy to come in the box and cover. And I met him and I talked to him face to face, and he said that, like, yeah, I can come down and cover. But you got to look at Josh Metellus and you got to look at Miles Dorn. So you got those guys as well. And then Mike Brown. So they bought in some guys that are going to fight for this safety spot. So, because I don't think you can go with 3 safeties. You got to go at 4. So I think you're going to put it at 6 corners, 4 safeties, which leaves Harrison Hand kind of out. That's just my thought. So I'm cutting Harrison Hand.
Yeah, I get the feeling they will too. They're 5 are locks at corner. If they're keeping 6, then you got a big competition. You got Ty Smith, Perry Nickerson, Chris Boyd, who's played a lot more than Hand in his career, not always effectively. I think it could come down to Boyd versus Hand to see who gets that spot, and I would probably cut Harrison Hand as well.
Yeah.
Here's another one for you, Ron. Kenny Willekes, 2nd year, check that, 3rd year, defensive end, hurt 1 year, came back the next, and it was actually pretty effective last year. So does Kenny Willekes have a spot on this defensive line?
That's when I saw that come up, I was a little bit like, I'm thrown off by that one because, again, the 3-4 to me it's new. I mean, I know exactly what a 4-3 is. The 3-4 is new as far as me deep diving. I haven't deep dived it yet, but when you look at James Lynch, you look at Harrison Phillips, you look at Kenny Willekes, you look at Janoris Robinson, who's coming back at DN. You look at Asezi, who can play the 5 technique and the 3, he said, as well as the wide 7 and stand up. I'm gonna. That's a tough one, though, man. That is really hard. Like, for the sake of this, I'm just gonna cut them. I'm gonna say you cut them for this one, and then you probably maybe bring them back because now this new. I don't know how the practice squad works because it's so weird nowadays. But because I think if you haven't spent 2 years on it, no matter what year you are, you can be on it. So I'm gonna say probably cut, but then put them on the practice squad to see, and then see how these other guys that have been here, these veterans, if it pans out. If you need to get them in for some energy, switch it up. But no, I'm gonna cut them for the sake of that.
Yeah, honestly, your practice squad guys these days are basically on your roster. You
Yeah.
get to call up the 2 extra ones on game day. You get guys filling in for COVID reasons. You no longer have to submit them to waivers for the first 2 times. I mean, you're constantly cycling through those practice squad guys that you can easily, I think, sneak them through to that. The numbers aren't favorable to Willekes because I think you have to keep Patrick Jones, Janarius Robinson, Odamewo, DJ Wan. Like, there's probably 6 defensive lineman that you have to keep automatically at that edge or outside position. So I don't feel great about Willekes' chances.
Right.
One more, real quickly. Troy Dye, third-year linebacker. Could he be a fit in this 3-4?
Yes, I think he can. Simply for the fact of the 3-4, you do need athletic guys that can move around. Now, what he did at Oregon was awesome. Like if you watch him at Oregon, athletically gifted. This is coming up on his third year, which man, it doesn't feel like it's been that long. But yeah, coming up on his third year, hasn't done much in those two. Has had some bright spots here and there. Made some plays. I would love to see him put some gloves on and some wristbands because that no glove, no tape, no nothing, just bare arms. Looks like a Madden creative player.
Looks like
that
a
you didn't have
long
enough.
snapper.
Yeah, every time I swear I thought it was the long snapper, but just looks like a creative player you didn't have enough money to add gloves and wristbands to. Like just swag it out a little bit, but that's I don't know. That's just because it's weird seeing a guy from Oregon not with all the swag, like not with it's just like, man, like he did not fit the mode of what Oregon is about, which is throw everything in the locker on and let's go out there and play some football. But again, when I go to the linebackers in this 3-4, I think there's room for more. Plus special teams, you're gonna see a lot of linebackers on special teams. Brian Asamoah, he's in there. Jordan Hicks is in there. Eric Kendricks is in there. And then I think Blake Lynch is in there. You guys, za'darius Smith as well. The one, and we'll talk about this at some point, but Chaz Surratt for me is the question mark. That's why I think Troy Dye gets in because he's done more than Chaz Surratt. And Chaz Surratt originally was supposed to be that athletic guy they wanted, but in the 4-3, he didn't work. Maybe in this 3-4 as a rush guy, as an athletic guy that can move around. Maybe they find a spot for him on this, if they have some packages. But again, I don't see it happening just because there's so many stars. When you talk about names like Danielle Hunter, za'darius Smith, I mean, Jordan Hicks and Eric Kendricks, those stars are going to get 90% to 95%. Their goal is 90% of the snaps. So I just don't see a lot of room for extras. I think Brian Asamoah fits in as that fifth linebacker in that grouping that's going to come in packages, especially when they need to spy the quarterback and do some other stuff. Troy Dye, same thing. I think he's athletic enough to give you some spy quarterback stuff. When you think about Josh Allen, you think about Kyler Murray, quarterbacks that could give you fits, Dak Prescott, guys that get out of the pocket and everybody in the stadium screaming like, why isn't nobody paying attention to the quarterback? Well, we have linebackers that can now, and I think Troy Dye and Brian Asamoah are two great pieces for that. Without to do it, for keep them or cut them. Love the segment, Sam. I like that. We're going to do that throughout training camp for sure because I know everybody wants to know what we're thinking. And then, of course, let us know what you're thinking. Make sure you download us on your podcast network. You can go to iHeartMedia's podcast network. You can go to Apple, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota, and you can find the Ron Johnson Show and all their clips.